Let me ask you a question. Are monster trucks a true motorsport? You might be wondering why on earth I'd ask such a silly question, but I mean it. It's hard to describe the situation in which the monster truck industry, in my personal opinion, fits in with other motorsports. To some people, it's all about the raw, purebred monster truck racing. To others, it's about the unadulterated, chaotic nature that many consider the golden age of Monster Jam and monster trucks in general, and some even love the new, action-packed, thrilling and jaw-dropping stunts and tricks in today's world of monster trucks. But not everyone is on board with these errors. Some believe it's taken away the legitimacy of competition. Others believe it's taken the sport to new heights. Well, today I attempt to weigh in on the interesting debate. So join me today as we answer this burning question. Monster trucks, motorsports entertainment, or a true motorsport? It's important first to recognize where the industry and the sport itself came from. So let's recap the progression of the sport. On March 2nd, 1981, Bob Chandler would practically start the whole industry with the first official car crush. From there, a promoter wanted to show the world what Chandler and his truck were capable of and do the same thing in front of a crowd. Despite Chandler's original concerns of it being received negatively, the promoter and Chandler would host a public event at the Pontiac Silverdome in April of 1983, where he would crush some cars in front of an electric crowd for the very first time. This led to more and more shows where monster trucks were hired as a side act, doing exhibition car crushes and mud bogs for various promoters such as USHRA and USA Motorsports, where the main focus of the event would be tractor pulling or mud racing. Eventually, though, the next step in the evolution of monster trucks were already being brought to life. The USHRA in 1985 would hold their first ever sanctioned and side-by-side monster truck racing competition. This then had put the focus on the fact that these machines could be competition worthy, not just attractions. By 1986, the decision had been made to not only feature monster truck competition and tractor pulling at the same events, but to try to combine the two as well. In a stadium setting, monster truck races started to feature dual sled pulls at the beginning before both trucks would turn around and complete the race going in the opposite direction. This was the first time that turning had been implemented into a monster truck race, which is now standard for most events. In 1988, an official monster truck racing point series by the name of the TNT Monster Truck Challenge was introduced, which pitted drivers and their trucks to battle it out for the points championship. After 3 years of competition, the series would come to a close in 1990, leaving an absence of a professional monster truck series. USHRA and USA Motorsports were still hosting highly competitive monster truck races at their events, with the former also having their own point series. But the events were invite only rather than qualify in, which had set TNT apart as the most competitive of the three. It wouldn't take long though for a professional series to return. 1991 saw the debut of the Pender Point Series, run by Special Events, in what was essentially the TNT Monster Truck Challenge, only with a big sponsor to back it. By this time, trucks had heavily evolved to be lighter, faster, and more agile, which led to close and awesome monster truck racing, something that was shown on full display at Pender events. A year later in 1992, USHRA would begin using the name Monster Jam by October of the same year, continuing to run their own monster truck point series every year, with the first two unnumbered World Finals events taking place in 1993 and 1994. But by 1995, USHRA would no longer be racing the monsters for points or a championship, leaving Pender as the lone series with not only open qualifying, but an official point series altogether. Unfortunately, Penda's sponsorship would end in 1997 and Special Events was without a points series as well. However, USA Motorsports would introduce their Monster Truck Challenge, being their own version of a televised points-based racing series, although this would only last until they were bought out by Monster Jam in 1998. Monster Jam would then bring back points for the 1999 season, as well as the World Finals, being the last one to not be numbered. Still, the lack of a pure racing series in the wake of TNT and Penda was not going unnoticed. The roots of Monster Truck Freestyle had more or less existed from the beginning, with monster trucks being exhibition pieces before they were races, and the concept of freestyle having been innovated by monster truck legends such as Mike Welch in Super Pete and Dennis Anderson in Gravedigger by the early 1990s. Freestyle then started to become more of an encore performance at various events starting in the mid-90s, primarily for Monster Jam, where the trucks could give the fans a more loose and carefree performance after the races were all finished. It also served as a consolation for drivers who have been eliminated early in the racing competition, so they could still get plenty of time in their trucks on the track. Some drivers weren't a big fan of running their trucks more than necessary, but others were more than happy to. However, it wasn't until the end of 1999 where freestyle went from being an exhibition encore to the second competition. The popularity and potential of the exhibition had grown, much like the early days of monster trucks, and it too became a competition. The new millennium gave birth to the industry and especially the era of Monster Jam many grew up with and were fond of. Freestyle was now something that was becoming more mainstream, even having full episodes dedicated to the freestyle competition. Monster Jam was still running their televised points series, but the World Finals Racing and Freestyle Championships had become most important. While these were still the championship events of the season, it was unclear whether point standings actually were the reason why certain trucks were being invited. Monster Jam would also be the only monster truck program with major TV exposure at this point, so they effectively became the standard for the sport. 2001 was truly the point that turned old school fans at this time away from watching Monster Jam, as the freestyle competition ramped up in intensity in the entertainment department, but that will be mentioned later on in the video. From 2001 onwards, Monster Jam continued to evolve, and the freestyle competition got wilder and wilder, which brought new fans and newfound attention. However, with the focus seemingly being on freestyle, that meant the pure racing side of the sport was quickly starting to dwindle. Some promoters tried to rekindle the professional aspect that had been left behind, like the 2000 Pro MT Trucks Pro Truck Tour, a series that ran alongside the Jamboree style events hosted by Trucks Pro, aimed to be the purest and most professional form of monster truck racing. There would be no freestyle and even no custom fiberglass bodies for its first 2 seasons. This tour would in theory be the successor to the Penda Point series and TNT Motorsports. However, the tour would be unable to gain major sponsorships or a television deal, leading to its ending in 2002. Most independent promoters would start to see the benefit of this new direction that Monster Jam had gone in, and would also introduce freestyle competitions such as special events, though some leagues would try to put an equal emphasis on both, like the 2007 Major League of Monster Trucks Tour, or Rick Schaefer's Monster Truck Challenge. In these series, the racing courses promised as much airtime and excitement as the freestyle competitions, yet both series would go under in 2008 due to financial mismanagement. Ed Beckley's Monster Truck Winter National events would feature a racing and freestyle point series during the entirety of the 2000s, largely competing in small arenas. The same can be said for the Milestones Motorsports Monsters of Destruction series from the mid-2000s. One benefit of freestyle was that a bigger emphasis was put on safety, which in turn allowed drivers to go bigger, better, and crazier as the years went on and the technology developed. By 2004, Monster Jam had quietly abandoned their points series and wouldn't revive it until 2015, which they still utilize to this day. Speaking of 2015, like the 2000 and 2001 season was viewed by old school monster truck fans, the new approach of making tracks more uniformed, slowly phasing out crush cars and other crushable vehicles like camper vans, to some took away the enjoyment many had with the era of Monster Jam they had grown up with. This allowed for a more consistent track for drivers to drive on and an even playing field. With crush cars and buses, the more they are crushed, the more they start to go away, which leaves drivers that go later on in the field to try and make the most out of a whittled down track, which isn't exactly fair. People would argue though that that's what made freestyle so interesting, but creating an even playing field allows for freestyle to become closer in the direction of a legitimate scored competition. This also led to the emphasis of new moves like the moonwalks, bicycles, sidewall saves, and all the new moves drivers are dreaming up. So now that we're up to speed, how exactly does this answer my question from before? After Bigfoot's 1983 car crush shocked the world, monster trucks would eventually turn into a legitimate motorsport. Pretty much any form of professional racing that features real competition and a points championship can be considered as such. But one thing to remember is that monster trucks at that time were a relatively new and exciting prospect. No one really knew the direction of which the sport was headed, or if it would even remain a sport. The absurdity and destructive power of monster trucks had been their main appeal since the beginning. So for them to largely be taken seriously as a motorsport might not have seemed too plausible at times. While some saw the direction as making it more akin to NASCAR or F1, others were looking to capitalize on the entertainment aspect by pushing the envelope and making the competition part of a larger show. After all, once you've seen a car or two or even a row of cars get crushed, you've pretty much seen it all. But when you make a van or bus stack, or whatever this monstrosity of a thing is, that's really where the bar continues to be raised. As I've said numerous times on this channel before, the events of Monster Jam World Finals 2 soured the relationship that traditional monster truck fans had with Monster Jam, though that also led to new fans getting invested in the sport, because they wanted to see bigger and better stunts and crazier destruction. However, in my eyes, this shift created an absence of the pure professional side and true motorsports aspect of monster trucks. While the term monster truck rally is erroneously used, it's part of why they've been called monster truck shows for decades versus monster truck races. After all, if the Premier Monster Truck League was starting to put the emphasis on a competition that focuses on entertainment than pure, clean competition, then why should independent promoters emphasize a style of competition that doesn't have as much of an appeal? Monster truck events have been an incredible platform for various types of motorsports, competition, and vehicular entertainment for decades. Whether it's monster truck racing, mud racing, tractor pulling, quad bike racing, car stunts, and stage drama, with promoters like USA Motorsports and USHRA oftentimes being more akin to a motorsports circus than a pure racing event. This leads into something of which I've discovered researching for this video. The majority of people that want Monster Jam to return to its former glory days don't want a professional and true motorsport, they want motorsports entertainment.
About the differences in
monster trucks
and sports entertainment.
Monster trucks have been compared to professional wrestling for many years. In fact, both industries have worked together on numerous occasions, and there is crossover between both fan bases. However, this comparison has been ammunition for the traditional monster truck fans I've previously mentioned. Wrestling is all about storylines and performances, and then creating excitement from a scripted yet thrilling narrative performed live in front of paying audiences. While scripted monster truck shows have largely been a failure, and if you think about it, with the exception of the scripted part, Monster Truck Freestyle and professional wrestling both kind of provide that same entertainment. Even WWE's prime and most daring period, the Attitude Era, was almost a direct parallel to the golden age of monster trucks in terms of freestyle. You'd constantly see the envelope being pushed further and further. Campers would be smashed while tables were broken, or trucks shredding fiberglass shells off while chairs were hit across the frail bodies of daring performers. Now in the WWE, it's fairly rare to see an edgy and violent match like that happen, and when it does happen, it's definitely not to the level that it used to be in the Attitude Era. Again, the parallel can be seen with Monster Jam. Removing things that made Monster Jam Freestyle so entertaining in its heyday created a divide between the fan base. Some weren't entirely fazed, like myself, and others were completely outraged. But the biggest thing is how Monster Jam, in my personal opinion, to appeal to both the people who want monster trucks to be a legitimate, professional monster truck series, yet still try to provide the entertainment that they used to, albeit with new methods. Again, there's a large majority of people that enjoy today's product, but there are just as many who don't. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, many other independent leagues have started to follow in the footsteps of Monster Jam. While some include crushable cars, vans, and buses, most of which are freestanding, they still have emphasized the two-wheel stunts and tricks that have now become commonplace in the sport. But there's one final thing I want to mention. The Olympics host a wide range of professional sports that test the athletic ability of the world's top athletes, and with a wide range of sports, each has their own methods of determining medalists. The winner of the 100-meter dash is the first person to cross the finish line, much like monster truck racing, or shot put being whoever can throw the ball the furthest, much like the monster truck long jump. But there's also diving, which is based on a scored performance, much like monster truck freestyle. As of recently, there has been the inclusion of skateboarding in the Olympics, which goes off of some sort of point system that is definitely way too convoluted for me to understand, but I digress. All of these different competitions are able to coexist on what is widely considered to be a legitimate stage. So why can't monster trucks have multiple different competitions and it still be classed as a true motorsport? The main difference is that Olympic judging is done by professionals, while monster truck judging is largely done by fans and spectators. That change would need to be spread across the whole industry, though Monster Jam has insisted on keeping fan judging for the sake of fan interaction, despite using a mixture of fan judging and professional judging for their premium event, the World Finals. That's not to say other independent leagues couldn't do this, as some, such as the Toughest Monster Truck Tour, have adopted a more technical scoring system. Ultimately, the real question is this: what can you consider monster trucks to be? The truth is, monster trucks for the longest time have been in a grey area, with the exception of the All-Star Monster Truck Tour having a championship series for Quarter 1. Monster Jam is the only continuous point series and is the premier monster truck league in the world. Yet some practices are continually frowned upon by fans that ultimately makes them question the legitimacy of what they are presenting. Even still, those fans still long for the days of campers, double bus stacks, and loads of crush cars to be destroyed for entertainment. Yet those times, while not only being long gone, and the circumstances around today's world have considerably changed since then, those times are what led old school fans, who arguably had the sport as close to it being considered a true motorsport during their time, be cast aside for the more entertaining and a more destructive scene that freestyle brought along. But everyone has their own opinion, and I've basically described it throughout the video. Times have changed and will continue to change. A truly great motorsport adapts and changes over time. and it's up to the fans to try and let go of the past and embrace the future. Trust me when I say that I want to see cars, vans, buses, and especially motorhomes being destroyed in freestyle just as much as you do, but at that same time, while I truly believe in and enjoy the current and future direction of the sport, I think incorporating certain aspects to make it a true motorsport in the eyes of mainstream media will help it gain new fans and interest. Monster trucks have brought me so much joy over the years, and you watching at home have given me a platform to talk about the industry I love. So, is it a true motorsport, or is it motorsports entertainment? I would honestly say both. Monster trucks have always been about entertainment, but leagues like Monster Jam are trying to rekindle the competitive nature and legitimacy that is expected in mainstream motorsports. But ultimately, it's a matter of how you view it, and that's a decision that you, the viewer, has to make. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon with some more Monster Truck content.